still remember the first time I saw her. Not like how you remember a stranger, but like you've seen someone before, maybe in a dream you didn't realize meant something. She stood by the window of her sister's apartment, sunlight slipping through the thin curtains and tracing the lines of her face like an artist's last, hesitant brushstroke. She was older, much older, and yet she carried that kind of calm that didn't ask for attention. It just drew you in. I was supposed to be helping my girlfriend move in that morning. Boxes everywhere, laughter echoing, the smell of brewed coffee and fresh paint. Then she walked in, barefoot, in a soft blue sweater that hung loose on her shoulders. Her hair was damp, her expression unreadable. "Hi," she said, her voice low, unhurried. "So you're the one my sister can't stop talking about." There was a teasing lilt in her tone, but her eyes, God, her eyes, held something heavier, like she already knew me, or knew something about me that I hadn't figured out yet. I smiled, awkwardly, trying not to stare. "That's me. The lucky one, I guess." She didn't smile back, just looked at me, like she was weighing something invisible. The rest of the day passed in fragments. Her laughter from the kitchen, the brush of her sleeve as we crossed paths in the hallway, the way she'd glance my way when she thought I wasn't looking. I told myself I was imagining it. But that night, when everyone had gone to bed, I found her in the living room, sitting in the dark. "You couldn't sleep either?" I asked. She didn't turn around. "I don't sleep much these days." There was a silence, the kind that hums between two people who shouldn't be talking but can't stop themselves. I walked closer, careful, unsure if I should sit. She spoke again, softly. "You remind me of someone." "Who?" I asked, keeping my voice light. She looked up then, her face half-shadowed, half golden under the flickering lamp. "Someone I almost loved." I froze. The words lingered in the air, thick with something unspoken. There was no way to respond that wouldn't break the spell, so I didn't. I just stood there, the world shrinking to the sound of her slow breathing and the faint ticking of the clock on the wall. That's when I noticed her hand, the faint tremor in her fingers as she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Vulnerability in motion. I wanted to say something, anything, ask if she was okay, if she needed someone to talk to, but I didn't trust my voice not to betray me. Instead, I said, "You look tired." Her eyes softened, and for the first time, she smiled. "You notice too much. Maybe you don't let people notice enough," I replied. For a second, she just stared at me, her lips parting slightly, as if my words had touched something she didn't want touched. Then she whispered, "Be careful with that." "With what?" "Noticing." And before I could say anything else, a knock echoed through the room. Sharp, sudden, breaking whatever fragile thing had just formed between us. Her eyes darted toward the door, then back to me. There was something in that look, half fear, half knowing. "It's late," she murmured. "Don't answer it." But I was already standing, heart racing, reaching for the doorknob, when she said my name for the first time, her voice trembling just enough to make me stop. "Please don't." The knock on the door that night turned out to be nothing. A delivery mix-up, someone looking for the apartment next door. But by the time I closed it again, she was gone. The lamp was off, the couch empty. Only the faint warmth on the cushion where she'd been sitting remained, and it lingered in my thoughts longer than it should have. For days after, I kept replaying that moment, the tremble in her voice, the way she said, "Please, don't." It wasn't just fear. It was restraint, like she was trying to protect both of us from something neither of us could name. Her name was Elena. She was 46, a photographer who'd once lived in Italy, married for 12 years to a man who still called sometimes but never stayed on the line long enough to say why. My girlfriend, Hannah, talked about her often. "Elena's the strong one," she'd say. "She's the reason I believe in second chances." But every time I saw Elena, she looked like someone who'd run out of them. One morning, I found her in the kitchen alone. The sun was pouring in through the blinds, cutting thin golden lines across her face. She was holding a cup of coffee but not drinking it, staring out the window at nothing. "You ever get the feeling," she said quietly, without looking at me, "that you're living a life that doesn't quite fit you anymore?" I hesitated. "Yeah." Lately, all the time. She glanced at me then, and there was a flicker of recognition, like she hadn't expected me to understand. I used to think love fixed that, she said, smiling faintly. Now I think it just hides it for a while. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to tell her that sometimes love doesn't fix you. It finds you broken and decides to stay anyway. But I couldn't. Not when her sister's laughter echoed down the hall. So I just nodded, pretending to sip from my empty glass, pretending not to feel the silence pull at me. Later that afternoon, I helped Elena carry boxes to the attic. The air was thick with dust and sunlight, the kind that turns every particle into a tiny secret. She handed me a framed photo, a younger her, standing beside a man I didn't recognize. "Your husband?" I asked, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Was." And then softer. "He left when I was 35. Said I was too quiet to love." I didn't laugh. Couldn't. Because that was the same thing someone once said to me. Different words, same wound. She looked up at me, eyes searching, as if she could sense the echo. "That's not true," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Quiet people feel everything. They just don't know where to put it. For a second, she didn't move. Then her hand brushed mine. Not an accident, not a full gesture either. Just the soft collision of two people who shouldn't, but do. We both froze. The attic was silent except for the faint creak of the floorboards, the slow rhythm of breathing too close together. The air between us changed after that moment in the attic. It wasn't spoken, but it hummed, quietly, invisibly, like the low vibration of a wire strung too tight. Elena didn't say a word when we went back downstairs. She brushed past me, her hair grazing my arm, her scent faintly clinging. Lavender, coffee, and something I couldn't name. I watched her walk away, knowing I shouldn't be watching at all. That evening, Hannah asked if I could stay for dinner. Her sister was making pasta. It should have been ordinary, a small, domestic kind of piece, but every glance across the table felt like a thread being pulled tighter. Elena avoided my eyes, or maybe she didn't. Maybe she was daring me to notice. Halfway through dinner, Hannah got a phone call and excused herself, disappearing into the bedroom with her phone pressed to her ear. I stayed seated, fork idle, heartbeat loud in the quiet kitchen. Elena stood, walked to the sink, and began washing dishes that didn't need washing. "You don't have to help," I said softly. "I know." The way she said it, controlled, careful, was a warning and an invitation all at once. The sound of running water filled the silence. I could see her reflection in the window above the sink. Her shoulders slightly hunched, her jaw set. "You're thinking too loud," she said, still facing the glass. I swallowed hard. "You're the one who keeps giving me things to think about." That made her turn. Slowly. Her eyes locked on mine, tired but alive in a way they hadn't been before. "This isn't a game," she whispered. "I know. And it can't happen. I know that too." Then she stepped closer. Not much, just enough that I could feel her warmth. The smell of dish soap and coffee mixed between us. "But you're thinking it anyway," she said. "I am." The space between our words was thinner than air. She looked at me like she wanted to move, but couldn't decide which direction would hurt less. And then the bedroom door opened. Hannah walked out, laughing at something on her phone, completely unaware of the storm that had been building 3 feet from where she stood. "Hey, you two look serious," she said, smiling. "Everything okay?" "Fine," Elena said quickly. Her voice cracked on the word. She turned back to the sink, hiding her face. I nodded, forcing a grin. "Yeah, just talking about the boxes in the attic." "Ugh. Don't remind me," Hannah groaned, sliding her arms around my waist. "You're a lifesaver, babe." I felt Elena's body stiffen across the room. Saw it in the way her hand froze mid-wipe, her knuckles pale against the counter. That night, when I left, she didn't say goodbye. But as I passed her room, I saw the light slip under the door. Narrow, constant, like she hadn't moved at all. The next few days were worse. Every message from Hannah felt heavier. Every silence from Elena felt louder. Then, one afternoon, my roommate, Dan, walked into the kitchen holding a letter. "This was in the mailbox for you," he said, tossing it onto the counter. I frowned. No return address, just my name, written in looping cursive. When I opened it, there were only 4 words inside. "Don't come back here." No signature. But I didn't need one. I knew her handwriting. Elena. I sat there for a long time, staring at the paper. My chest felt tight, my thoughts messier than ever. Why? Was it guilt? Fear? Or something she was trying to protect me from? I told myself I'd respect it. Stay away. Move on. I lasted 2 days. When I showed up at their apartment again, Hannah wasn't home. Her car was gone. The door was unlocked. I stepped inside quietly. The air was heavy with rain. Somewhere outside, thunder rumbled low and distant. "Elena!" I called. No answer. Then I saw her on the couch, sitting with her legs tucked beneath her, staring at a half-finished glass of wine. "You shouldn't be here," she said without looking at me. "I know." "Then why are you?" "Because I got your letter." She finally looked up. Her eyes were red, not from tears, but from exhaustion. "It was a mistake." "I don't think it was." She stood, brushing past me toward the window. "You're young. You don't understand what mistakes can cost." "Then teach me." That made her stop. Her breath caught, just barely. Lightning flashed outside, and for a second, the room lit up, the reflection of both of us caught in the glass. I moved closer. So did she. Not meaning to. "Elena," I started. "Don't," she said, but her voice was shaking. "I can't stop thinking about you." The words fell out before I could stop them. She closed her eyes, like she was trying to hold herself together. "You have no idea what you're saying." "Maybe not," I said, stepping closer. "But I know what I feel." And then we were too close. Too close for sense, too close for honesty. Her breath brushed my cheek. Her hand hovered near my chest but didn't touch. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. The world narrowed to the sound of rain against the glass and the soft, unbearable tension of almost. Her lips parted, not for a kiss but for a confession. "I can't do this to her." "I'm not asking you to." She looked at me, eyes shining with something between fear and want. "Then why does it feel like you already did?" I didn't have an answer. The thunder cracked louder this time, and she stepped back, like the sound itself had broken the spell. "Go," she whispered. "Please." I hesitated at the door, soaked in confusion and guilt. When I finally turned to leave, she said my name, softly, desperately. I looked back. She was standing there, trembling slightly, her hand pressed to her chest like she was trying to keep something from escaping. "I told myself I wouldn't," she whispered, "but I think I already have." Days turned into weeks, and silence turned into its own language between us. I stopped visiting for a while, or maybe Elena stopped letting me. Either way, the space grew thick with everything unsaid. Hannah and I were still together, at least in name, but something had shifted. I could feel it in the way she touched me, gentle, distracted, searching for something she no longer found. Every smile felt borrowed. Every kiss borrowed time. And still, I couldn't stop thinking about her sister. Every time I tried, something would pull me back. A photo she'd taken, a word she'd said, a memory that refused to fade. Then one night I saw her again. It was Hannah's birthday dinner. The restaurant was crowded, candlelight flickering across tables, laughter overlapping from every direction. Elena sat across from me, elegant and quiet, a glass of wine untouched in her hand. When our eyes met, it was like the room fell away. She looked tired, beautiful, and unbearably distant. "Nice to see you again," I said quietly when we found ourselves alone near the bar, Hannah off greeting friends. "Don't start," she whispered. "I wasn't going to." "Yes, you were." We both laughed softly, but there was no joy in it, only the weight of everything we couldn't say. I leaned closer, my voice low. "You've been avoiding me." She took a slow sip of wine, her fingers trembling just slightly. "You make it sound easy not to." There it was, the truth hidden in plain sight. My pulse quickened. "Then why?" Because it's wrong, she interrupted, voice sharp but eyes soft. Because she loves you. And because I promised myself I'd never. She stopped. Her breath hitched. I waited. Never what? Never fall for someone I couldn't keep. The words hit harder than I expected. For a moment, neither of us moved. The sounds of clinking glasses, laughter, music, they all blurred into a soft, meaningless hum. Elena, I started, but she shook her head. Don't, she said again. Not here. But I couldn't stop. You think pretending makes it better? You think ignoring it makes it go away? Her jaw tightened. It has to. Then why do you look at me like that? The question hung between us, fragile and dangerous. Her lips parted, but before she could speak, Hannah appeared beside me, slipping her hand into mine. Hey, she said, smiling. You two look serious. What did I miss? Elena blinked fast, her expression shuddering back to calm. Nothing, she murmured. Just old habits. Hannah laughed, oblivious, but I could see it. The faint shine in Elena's eyes, the quick breath she tried to hide. Later, after dinner, I found her outside alone, standing beneath a flickering streetlight. The night was cool, the air heavy with the smell of rain. Say it, I whispered, stepping closer. Whatever it is you're trying not to. Her eyes met mine. Tired, fierce, and breaking all at once. I can't keep pretending you're just hers, she said. But I can't be the reason she loses you either. The silence that followed was louder than any argument. She stepped closer, just once, until her breath touched my cheek. I don't trust myself anymore, she whispered. My hand rose instinctively, almost touching her face. Almost. And then the door behind us opened. Hannah's voice floated out. Hey, what are you two doing out here? We both froze, inches apart, hearts in our throats. Elena's hand brushed mine. Once, fleeting, before she turned away, her voice steady, betraying nothing. Just saying goodnight. Hannah seemed quieter than usual. She wasn't angry, just careful. Too careful. Her questions were soft, deliberate, like she was circling something she didn't want to name. You and Elena seemed close tonight, she said while brushing her hair in front of the mirror. Yeah, I replied, trying to sound casual. She's your sister. She smiled faintly, but her eyes stayed fixed on her reflection. She said you've been helping her with some of her photography stuff? I froze. She told you that? Yeah, she mentioned it last week. Sounded like you two were spending a lot of time together. I forced a laugh. Just helping with boxes, really? Her brush slowed. You sure about that? The question wasn't loud, but it hit like a door slamming shut. I wanted to tell her the truth. Some version of it that wouldn't destroy everything, but my throat closed. Yeah, of course. She didn't say anything else, just nodded and turned off the light. But her silence was louder than shouting. The next morning, a message buzzed my phone. Elena, don't call me. Don't come by. Please. My stomach dropped. Before I could reply, another message appeared. This one from Hannah. Hannah, come to Mom's. We need to talk. 2 texts. 2 women. One truth pressing down on my chest. When I arrived, Hannah was sitting on the porch steps, her phone in hand, her expression unreadable. She didn't look up when she spoke. I saw your messages. My heart stopped. What? She turned the screen toward me. The conversation, mine and Elena's, lit up in cold blue bubbles. I wasn't looking for anything, she said quietly. I just borrowed your phone to call Mom the other night. Then it buzzed. I wanted to speak, to explain, to lie, anything, but words abandoned me. You could have told me, she continued. Both of you could have. I never meant for what? She interrupted, her voice cracking. For me to find out? For her to feel something for you? For you to feel it back? Her eyes were wet, but she didn't cry. That hurt more. She's my sister, Hannah whispered. And she's been through hell already. I thought you understood that. I do. Then why does it look like you're the one breaking her all over again? I had no answer. She stood, wiping her hands on her jeans as if trying to get rid of something that stuck. "You should go. Hannah, go." Her voice was final. That night, I drove aimlessly until I found myself outside Elena's house. The lights were off, except for one upstairs. I hesitated, then knocked. When she opened the door, she didn't look surprised, just broken. "She knows," I said. "I know," she whispered. "She called me." Her hand trembled as she leaned against the doorframe. "You should hate me for this. I could never." She closed her eyes. "Then maybe I'll hate myself enough for both of us." I reached for her hand, but she stepped back, shaking her head. "You don't understand. She's not just angry. She told me she's leaving. She's moving back to our mother's. She said she can't stay in the same city as either of us." The world seemed to tilt beneath me. "What? She's gone," Elena said softly. "And it's my fault." I looked at her. This woman who had tried so hard to be strong, now unraveling under the weight of her own heart, and realized something that terrified me more than guilt ever could. It wasn't just her sister I'd lost. It was her, too. The world outside the cafe blurred into the faint hum of rain. Inside, everything between Ethan and Clara finally reached a breaking point. For weeks, they'd been circling the inevitable, that magnetic pull between them that neither of them had the courage to name. But tonight, as the thunder rolled across the horizon, silence filled the space between their breaths. Clara looked exhausted, not in the physical sense, but the kind of tired that comes from running away from your own heart. "This has to stop," she whispered. Though her voice trembled on the word stop, Ethan's jaw tightened. "You've said that before." Her lips parted to argue, but she didn't. Instead, her eyes fell to the table, to the steam rising from her untouched cup of coffee. She wanted to be strong, to say the right thing, to remind him of the 15 years between them, of her son, of her husband waiting somewhere across town. But when she looked at Ethan, all she saw was the one person who had seen her, really seen her, in years. "Do you think I wanted this?" she said finally. "You make me feel alive again, Ethan, and that terrifies me." He leaned forward, his voice low but steady. "Maybe that's not something to be afraid of. Maybe that's what you've been missing." There it was, the truth neither of them wanted to say aloud. The truth that hung in every stolen glance, every almost touch. Clara stood, pacing toward the window. Her reflection stared back, the woman she'd been pretending to be, and the woman she'd become because of him. "You're young. You think everything can be fixed with feeling. But I have a life, a family." Ethan stood too, stepping closer. "And yet you came here. You chose this moment." Her breath caught. He was right. She had chosen it over and over again. Outside, a car passed, headlights flashing across their faces like a spotlight on a confession long overdue. "I don't want to lose myself again," she said, her voice breaking. "Then don't," Ethan whispered. "But don't pretend this isn't real." They were inches apart now, the air between them trembling. She could smell his cologne, could feel the warmth of his hand barely brushing hers. Everything in her screamed to step back, but her heart, fragile and furious, urged her to stay. For one suspended heartbeat, she let her fingers graze his. Electricity surged. Her pulse raced. The rain outside turned harder, louder, like the world itself holding its breath. Then, she pulled away, not in anger, but in surrender. "This can't be," she said softly, "but I'll never forget that it was." Ethan closed his eyes, nodding slowly. The acceptance of a man who understood that sometimes love isn't meant to be kept, only felt. As Clara walked away into the storm, he whispered to the empty room, "Neither will I." The door closed behind her, leaving only the echo of rain and a love that would haunt them both. Not as a wound, but as a truth too powerful to name. The night was heavy with silence, the kind that feels almost alive, thick, waiting, pulsing with all the words left unsaid. Clara stood by the window of her dimly lit apartment, the city lights painting her face in fragments of gold and shadow. Ethan stood a few feet away, motionless, as if afraid that any sudden move would shatter what was left of them. It had come to this, the moment they'd both avoided but secretly known would arrive. Clara finally turned, her expression unreadable. "You shouldn't have come." Ethan smiled faintly, but there was no joy in it. "I told myself that too, 100 times, but I had to see you. One last time." Her breath hitched. Those 4 words, "one last time," carried a finality she wasn't ready to face. She looked down, twisting the ring on her finger, the one that tied her to a life she no longer recognized. "You think this is easy for me?" she said, her voice breaking, low and trembling. "You think I can just walk away from everything I've built? My husband, my son, because of what I feel?" Ethan's jaw clenched. "No, Clara. I think you've been walking away from yourself for years." The truth hit her like a physical blow. She looked up at him, tears brimming. "Don't do that. Don't make this about courage. You're young. You don't understand what it costs to burn everything down." He stepped closer. "Then tell me, what does it cost to stay where your soul keeps dying?" For a long time, neither spoke. The rain outside began to fall harder, a steady percussion against the glass. It filled the silence that stretched between them, thick with the ache of almost love. Finally, Clara exhaled, a long, trembling sigh. "I can't keep doing this," she said. "Every time I see you, I forget who I'm supposed to be. And every time you leave, I remember too much." Ethan swallowed hard. "Then tell me what you want." She met his gaze, really met it, and for the first time there was no pretending. Just 2 people standing at the edge of something too big to control. "I want you," she whispered. "But I can't have you." He reached out, hesitated, then brushed his fingers along her cheek. A touch so gentle it hurt. "Maybe that's what makes it real," he murmured. "That we want what we can't keep." Clara closed her eyes, leaning into his touch for just a heartbeat. One last borrowed moment before the world rushed back in. Then she stepped away. "Goodbye, Ethan." He didn't try to stop her. He just watched as she slipped her coat on, opened the door, and disappeared into the sound of rain. Ethan stood alone, his reflection in the window blurred by water and city light. The image of a man who'd loved, lost, and finally understood that sometimes the bravest thing to do is let go. And somewhere, in the distance, Clara whispered to herself, "Maybe that's love, after all." A month had passed since that night. The air had changed, colder, quieter, but inside Ethan, something had finally begun to settle. The ache hadn't disappeared, but it no longer hollowed him out the way it once did. It was like learning to breathe through a scar. He still thought of Clara, not constantly but in flashes, the way she used to laugh softly at her own thoughts, the way she looked at him as if he were both the best and worst decision of her life. Sometimes he'd see a woman on the street wearing a beige coat like hers, and for a split second, his heart would forget that she was gone. But then the moment would pass and he'd keep walking. He'd gone back to his life, to his photography classes, his small apartment, his friends who never asked what had changed. And yet, everything had, because after Clara, he couldn't see the world the same way. She'd taught him something no one else had, that love isn't always meant to be possessed. Sometimes it's meant to wake you up. One rainy afternoon, Ethan sat in a cafe editing photos for a project. He scrolled through his camera roll, pausing on one. A candid shot of Clara laughing under a streetlight months ago, her hair damp from the drizzle. He hadn't even realized he'd taken it. For a moment, he just stared at it, the ghost of a smile tugging at his lips. He didn't delete it. He didn't have to. Outside, the world moved. People rushing, umbrellas opening, horns echoing. Life was happening, and for the first time in a long while, he felt ready to be part of it again. He picked up his camera and walked out, letting the rain fall across his face, soaking through his shirt. Felt cleansing, not cold. Across the city, Clara sat in her car at a red light, fingers drumming against the steering wheel. She'd just dropped her son at school. For days now, she'd been thinking of writing to Ethan, not to rekindle anything, but just to say thank you. Thank you for seeing her when she'd forgotten how to see herself. But she didn't write. She simply whispered it into the air. "Thank you," she said softly, a tear slipping down her cheek. Then the light turned green, and she drove on, not away, but forward. Love had changed them both, even if they couldn't keep it. And maybe, just maybe, that was the point.